cake making from a box. Week 2. Today we're making turtle caramel chocolate cake. So we're starting with the double food cake, which is an all-time favorite by a lot of people's standards. We're adding 1 1/4 cup water, 3 farm fresh eggs, a 1/2 cup of oil. I use grapeseed oil. You can use vegetable oil or whatever you want. After we get it mixed, we're going to add 1 cup of pecans, 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips, 2/3 of a cup of caramels cut up, and 1/3 a cup of classic white chips. Now we are going to add a little bit more chocolate after we pour it in the pan, but this is what we're going to start with. Now we're going to begin with our liquids. So I'm putting the oil in first, and remember I use grapeseed oil so it looks more green. Then we're going to add 3 farm fresh eggs, and then the 1 1/4 cups of water. I like the water to be room temperature. And we're just going to put the beaters down, and we are going to start to mix. Now one thing to remember, farm fresh eggs are harder to break apart than store-bought eggs, but they will incorporate. You just mix them a little bit and all of a sudden they break apart. And they make a lovely cake. Now we're having that all mixed together, so I'm going to start adding my cake mix. And I like to add a little bit at a time, mix, add some more, mix again, always stopping every once in a while so that we can scrape down the sides. So I've scraped down the sides, and we're going to start it again. My oven is preheated already at 350 degrees. And we're going to finish the last of our cake mix in there. And as soon as that's all incorporated, then we can switch and add some of our goodies inside. And just be patient. You don't want to have the beaters too fast or it flies all over the place. So here we have all of that incorporated. So let's add our pecans. Then we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips. We're going to add our caramel. I use Kraft, but you can use any kind you want. I just happen to like Kraft caramels. And then our classic white chips. This time I'm using a 13x9 pan, and I just sprayed it with vegetable oil because I don't have to take it out, lift it out, so I don't need the flour. And so let's pour it in. See how thick and yummy it is? Now I have it in the cake pan, but there's one more step I'm going to do because this is a turtle cake with caramel and pecans, but it is loaded with chocolate. The last thing I'm doing is grating some dark chocolate with some nuts in it so that I can just sprinkle on top of that batter. So all I do is just take some of it and just start to sprinkle. So we have so many different types of chocolate, and it just makes a wonderful cake. We're going to bake that. I'll check it at 30 minutes. The oven's at 350 degrees, and then we'll let it cool completely. I just took the cake out of the oven. It was in there 30 minutes, and I always like to do the toothpick test, and it comes out clean, so I know it's done. So this is going to cool on the racks. It'll probably take it 20-30 minutes to cool all the way down, and then we're making the frosting, and we're going to pour that on plus all the toppings. We're going to make a stovetop chocolate frosting. We have 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 a cup of butter, and 1/4 a cup of cocoa. To that we're going to add 1 cup of milk. I'm going to turn my burner on 3, which is between low and medium. And I will start to stir it, and the butter will start to melt, the sugar and the cocoa will incorporate with the milk and the butter. And I'm just going to bring it to a boil for just 20 seconds. Now I'm still stirring. The butter is starting to melt. Now the reason why I don't want this burner to have very much heat on it is because I don't want the granulated sugar to get too hot, and then it would want to try to form candy. Now this is not a fluffy frosting, this is more like a glaze, but as it cools it does harden some, and it just makes a great topping for the turtle cake. So I'm just going to keep stirring this. Now after it comes to the boil, and it's boiled for 20 seconds, never more than 30 seconds, I'm going to add a teaspoon of homemade vanilla. It's just starting to boil. It's just a rolling boil, and it's just going to be boiling for 20 seconds. I have the timer on, and as soon as it's done boiling for that 20 seconds, there goes the timer, I'm going to put a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to turn the burner off and take it off. I'm incorporating the vanilla, and then I'm just going to let that cool some while the cake is just finishing cooling, and then we're going to pour it on top. Now remember, this is more like a glaze. It will harden some as it cools, but it's not a fluffy frosting. I wanted to show you how it thickens as it cools. See how it starts to get thicker? And it's just a matter of cooling it down. Now I'm going to pour the frosting over it. It's still thin. It isn't all the way cooled, but it is cooler than it was at first. And the reason why I don't want it completely cool, because it's hard to spread and it breaks the top of the cake sometimes. So I'm just going to swirl that all around and cover it. Now that glaze will harden very quickly now because it's all spread out. So let's add our toppings. Here's some of the toppings that we're going to put on after the frosting. This is just slivers of a milk chocolate bar, crushed pecans, and some pieces of caramel. And each caramel square I cut up into 8 pieces. So we have some caramels, because what makes a turtle? Chocolate, caramels, and pecans. Let's add some pecans. And let's top it with some slivers of chocolate. I'll let it set for 10 minutes, and I'm going to cut Joe a piece of cake. Chewy and gooey and perfect extra chocolate turtle cake. Giving Joe a piece with some milk. We're enjoying a piece of cake, turtle cake that is. As always, like, subscribe, share with the world. Next week, we're making a fruit cocktail upside down cake. See you next week, and enjoy bacon.